For some people, designing a single game can take years of practice. For others, they break their ideas down into several smaller ideas so they can make the games that they want to play. This week, join me, Zach Walsh, as I interview Weston about their line of games. We talk about their games, running a game jam, and talk about the changes that we've seen in the indie gaming community. Welcome to Scheduled for Launch, a podcast to discover projects that you may have missed. This week, I am incredibly thrilled to have Weston here on the podcast. Weston, thank you so much for joining me here.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here.
So, listeners who have been here for a little while, you've probably heard a little bit about Weston. Some people have actually told us a little bit about you and some of the ways that they got into game creation, and I'm really excited about that. I've talked to Adela, Adam, and Thrin were a couple of people I also talked to, so I'm super pumped to have you on.
Oh, cool. Yeah, those are great people.
It's great. They're so nice. So before we really jump into what you do, Weston, can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. Hi, my name is Weston, or Marigold, actually. Just added that one. But
Okay.
you can use any pronouns for me. And I'm well, a little bit about myself, huh? I guess I write games, and I've started working on a podcast more recently, and I'm just really in love with the idea of storytelling in general, but especially this kind of collaborative storytelling that a lot of indie tabletop RPGs are interested in, because of the way that it allows people to explore different ideas about, well, anything really, in safe environments.
Yeah.
But that's basically, high level who I am. I am interested in far too many things. I have ADHD, which means I bounce from hobby to hobby quite a bit. I have a garden and a typewriter. I write letters to people, and just always finding new things to do.
Oh, that's phenomenal. I love that. That's so much fun.
It is.
So, Weston, you are a game designer, and from what I'm aware, you've made 3 bigger ones. And
Yeah.
that would be, Feather Down, Wagon Wheel, and Habits of the Common House Ghost. And that's actually the one that I kind of found you on my own about.
Oh, cool.
I think it was right when the Zine Quest month was ending. I really liked the look of it, so I made sure to kind of talk about it a little bit on my Twitter, and just like
Nice.
I love the themes for your games. I think is the best way to really talk about it. They always have this exploration part of it, and by that I mean like on an emotional level. Feathered Down, for instance, you mentioned it's like a game about feeling lost, and Wagon Wheel's restoration, and Habits of the Common House Ghosts, interruptions in your daily life. What brings you to exploring these themes?
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess those kinds of things are what I'm most interested in exploring in games in general. Is more of like the introspective and relational side of things. And I think framing stuff in a kind of fictional setting lets me, and I think other people are similar, it lets us explore things in an abstracted way, which almost lets us explore it deeper than we could if we were just trying to analyze how we feel about certain kinds of things or certain kinds of situations or struggles that we're dealing with ourselves or more externally, I suppose. But so I guess these are supposed to be just kind of ways for us to engage with different phases, different types of expression. But yeah.
I think that's really interesting too. You've got, like I said, a really good handle. I unfortunately haven't had the chance to play any of these yet. I am looking forward to. A friend of mine actually told me about Wagon Wheel, an online friend, and I think we might be playing it relatively soon. I'm
Oh,
really
heck yeah.
excited to do that. Yeah. So, not to get choosy, do you have a favorite out of these three?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Wagon Wheel is my favorite. It's the one
Oh,
I've
is
put
it?
the most work into. Yeah, yeah. I it's the first one I started writing,
Okay.
and the second one I finished. It's uh, the most. Mm, it's the longest book, anyway. It's like 50 pages long or something like
Oh
that, and that's
wow.
like just like Word document pages. It's a hack of stew pot, but
Oh.
I think it's quite different. But it follows the same kind of structure in that you have an old job, like an adventure job, and then you have your restoration job, and you kind of slowly replace your different skills. Not really replace, but you're learning new ones. Um, and yeah, and you travel from town to town and kind of help folks out after some kind of calamity has happened. So it's kind of like
Okay.
post. It kind of starts where a lot of games end. Is kind of the idea.
Okay. So Wagon Wheel is, you said it's a game about restoration, and it's kind of building after your purpose is done. Then, right? Is if that's how I read it, at least it's your job's finished, but you still keep on going. So what comes next, right?
Right. Yeah. And a lot of times that's true. Right. Yeah. So it's like um, whether it's a war or some other kind of disaster, usually you play people who, well, you always play people who have been directly affected by that, whether they were
Hmm.
fighting against um, the the tyranny or the whatever in the moment they were affected by it, and now they're usually what ends up being the theme is helping people adjust to a new normal.
Okay. That's that's a little bit relevant right now, especially with the current world state.
Yeah.
So I really like this though, because I look at these three games and I see that you're really not pigeonholing yourself. Habits the Common House Ghost, that's one that came out this year. Finished up, you kickstarted on in February for Zine Quest, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. How was your Kickstarter experience?
It was good. It was fun. Yeah, I got a lot of support, and it was a lot of fun to. One of the things that one of the rewards I had was letting people kind of commission a ghost because I
Oh,
was
that's so cute.
creating illustrations for the game, and I was like,
Okay.
"Hey, if you want to influence that, let me know. Pay me money, and, and I'll draw uh, based on your prompt." So a few people, I ended up just turning like a picture of them into a ghost, and
Oh, that's fun.
other people just had like more general ideas. And actually, Adela, who you mentioned before, a good
Yeah.
friend of mine, uh, had me draw a character that we actually played in a game of Habits of the Common House Ghost in during some of the early playtesting.
Oh, that's so much fun.
Yeah.
Could you tell the audience a little bit about Habits of the Common House Ghost? Because I think it's one of the cutest games out there. I think it's
Oh,
really fun.
Yeah, Habits of the Common House Ghost is a game about being a ghost. You share a protagonist. It's for 1 to 4 people, and basically you establish a routine, and then you mess it all up by rolling on a table of different kinds of interruptions. So you take turns playing the ghost, and when somebody's playing the ghost, other people play NPCs that show up and can talk to
Mhm.
them or interact. So yeah, I mean that's the high level explanation of it.
So another thing that this it's been the kind of the thing that I've been most excited to kind of talk to you about because I
Mm.
heard about it on a couple different discords, and it's one of the first ways that I heard about you. But you organize a creators game jam, or you have at least.
Yeah,
Can you tell us a little bit about the creators game jam and what exactly goes on for that?
yeah. I've hosted 2 so far, and I have another one in mind, but it anyway, I'll do it eventually. But I always and the game jams that I like to do are just very loose. I don't have like strict rules or
Hmm.
ideas. I basically have a prompt. So the
Okay.
first one I did is what kind of uh, launched Habits of the Common House Ghost. It's where that came from,
Hmm.
and it was just a ghost themed game jam. And so I just said, hey, if you want to write a game that somehow deals with a ghost or ghosts, like that's what this is for. So I mean, that was the whole thing. Yeah, and then it actually got a lot of people who hadn't written games to write games, and I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So is it like a timed event? What exactly goes into the structure, I should say? So we know there's a
Oh,
prompt.
sure. Yeah, so there's a prompt, and then just some like basic rules, but those are mostly just like your podcast rules of like, hey, don't be a jerk, don't be a bigot, don't be a racist, like, and we'll be fine. So yeah, and then there's a time frame. Both the game
Hmm.
jams that I've ran have lasted a month,
Okay.
and I'm not super concerned about. Um, oh, lost my train of thought. Let's see if I can
Oh
find
no.
it. I'm not super concerned with people having. Nope, it's not there. Yeah.
Oh no, that's okay. That's okay. We'll come back to
Just
it.
tried starting the sentence again and it didn't get me there. Yeah.
You're not super concerned about them having anything super solid, I'm guessing that is like at the end, so long as they had a good time and tried it,
Yeah.
right?
Right, right. Yeah, that. And I don't care about them having written it during the game jam, which some game
Yeah.
jams, like, they don't even, like, talk about their theme or whatever beforehand. Or they might
Hmm.
talk about high level, but they don't give you the prompt until it starts. And they want you
Okay.
to have written it within, you know, the month or within, like, a few weeks or whatever, however long it is, which is
Hmm.
fine. That's a fun way to approach it.
Yeah.
Some people have argued that my game jams aren't actually jams, but I still think they are. But they more just give people an excuse and an opportunity to write a game on a theme.
Hmm.
And I don't care if they've started beforehand, because a lot of times I'll set it up a little ways in advance, and so people know it's coming. So some people already have their
Yeah.
game written by the time I start it, and I think that's great. You know, if it's what made them engage with an idea that was
Yeah.
either on the back burner or it inspired an idea and caused them to kind of create a game, I just think that's really fun.
I think that really lends itself to what you said earlier about the indie scene and just people getting together and exploring ideas. I think that your game jam or whatever people want to call it, I'll consider it a game jam. I think
Sounds good.
I think it's just another way for people to explore something though. Isn't that kind of the goal that you're setting?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the other one, because the other game jam I did was, it was called Once Upon a Blue Monday, and it was just a sad game jam. So
Oh boy.
the first one I only really talked about in the Discord, the Roll Plus Bond
Mhm.
Discord, and had it like as basically a private game jam just for us because
Okay.
I'd never ran one and just wanted to kind
Yeah.
of start it easy. And then the second one I released more. I
Mhm.
didn't like advertise it or whatever,
No,
promote it,
but
but I did like make it public. So got a few submissions from people I didn't know, which was fun. But this one was just, like write a game that makes people sad. And that's where Feather Down came out of.
oh, Feather Down is just reading the description. That feels like it could hurt. That feels like a game that could hurt me.
Yeah. Uh huh.
While we're on it, because I think it's the one we did talk about. Do you want to mention what Feather Down is?
Yeah, so Feather Down is a migration story. So in Feather Down, you also share a protagonist. So you
Hmm.
play a migratory animal that gets separated from its group. And it's based on a game called Accursed,
Oh,
which is uh, based on the Quiet Year.
okay.
So that's kind of just the progression of ancestry for this game. But yeah, so what that means though is you go through the different um, suits of cards and you draw until you hit the king. I think is what I have it as ends the um, ends that kind of phase. So, and each phase is focused on a certain. Um, they're loosely based on the stages of denial.
Oh,
um,
okay.
so, as you kind of go through the game, there's four phases, and there's more stages of denial than that. But
Hmm.
that each one kind of like addresses certain parts of each one. Um,
Okay.
so then by the end, you're working towards acceptance and you kind of decide what that means.
Hmm.
And you'll have a chance to rejoin your group if that's what you decide to do, but it's not what
Okay.
you have to do. So yeah, it's it's just about um, being lost and finding hope and joy in where you are, and then um, deciding how you want to move forward.
Okay, that's oh, yeah, that's a lot. That could be heavy with the right group of
Yeah,
people.
yeah. I've never played it and it not be heavy.
Oh
It kind
no.
of, but that's kind of by design.
Yeah.
I'm sure you could make it silly, but
Mhm.
it would take some doing.
So, Weston, one of the great things about your game specifically is looking at them, they all have a low prep time, and from what I can tell, I think they're all GM lists, right?
Yes, yep. Both of those things are true.
Yeah. And I'm guessing this is intentionally done.
Yeah, mostly because that's what I'm interested in.
Yeah,
Those are
okay.
the kinds of games I want to play.
Yeah.
I've been a lot more interested in GM-less games, partly because I GM'd for a long time, and that just that takes a lot of work, and it
It
takes a
does.
lot of time between sessions to figure things out. So, like Habs of the Common House Ghost was specifically designed to be a short game. So the first half you're kind of setting things up, and the second half you're going through the four phases of the day, and that's it. So it takes about 2.5 hours to play. Where Feather Down takes. I haven't seen it get finished in one session. So I have seen it get finished in two, but usually it takes. I suspect it will usually take four. one for
Yeah.
each kind of phase of the game. And then Wagon Wheel, you can kind of play that as fast or as slow as you want. Like you
Yeah.
can end it before it technically ends, the built-in mechanic
Mhm.
for it ending. But the longest I've played one is 6 sessions, which
Oh
was a lot
wow.
of
Yeah,
fun.
that's all right.
Yeah.
So, and that kind of draws me around to another part. A lot of player people who are into tabletop role playing games that I've talked to are not familiar with GM-less systems, and a lot of them
Oh.
worry. Yeah, a lot of them worry about sacrificing story because they don't feel that they are suitable. But I was hoping that you'd be able to talk a little bit about your relationship with GMless games and storytelling because based on
Mm-hmm.
your game ancestors on your itch page, you play a lot of these story heavy GMless games.
Yeah. Yes. So the way they work, in large part, is just people relying on each other to have good ideas. And what we do is but we build on them. The bottom line is not being afraid to share the dumb idea that you have. You say, like you might be like, well, okay, so we have a community. I kind of want it to be set in like the rural Northwest, but or at least have those vibes. But I don't love the idea of this, and then somebody else is
Yeah.
like, okay, I kind of like this part of that, but let's take it this way. And so you end up building a thing that none of you could have come up with on your own. And it ends up being really cool and things tied together in ways you wouldn't have expected. You get a prompt that pulls you in a certain way and uh, ties back in something that somebody had as like kind of a throwaway line earlier, and it just deepens. And one of the things I love about gemless games is that everybody is on the same level. Anybody can take something that somebody else said and run with it. And what that also means is that everybody is super invested from the beginning. Where in GM'd games, which I love, I mean, GM'd games are still a lot
Hmm.
of fun, but it's up to the GM to create buy-in for each player based on their
Yeah.
character and like what they think they'll like. Where in a GMless game, you just put in what you like. The biggest challenge in GMless games really is to let everybody have space to talk and to process and to work through ideas.
And that's kind of something I really like about them too. You pretty much nailed it right on the head for me. um, so something, and I'd like your opinion on this too. So correct me if you don't think so, but
Mm,
personally, as I've been getting more involved with the indie scene, and I see it a lot, especially with the podcast and talking to people, and I know that you're quite invested in the indie tabletop role playing game scene. There is a bigger shift towards indie RPGs that explore different ideas than I shouldn't even say different ideas, but ideas in a different way than the big game designers like Pathfinder or Call of Cthulhu or Dungeons and Dragons. And
yeah.
yeah, it's been steady. It started a little bit before the pandemic, I'd say personally. But
Hmm.
what do you think's causing people to do this? Is it like there's more games available, it's easier to get a hold of them, just online play? What's your opinion on it?
Yeah. I think you're right. I think a part of the boom is just because of the pandemic, honestly. Like, it's because of that I suspect that without it, I wouldn't have written any games.
Oh wow.
I probably wouldn't have had time to play. I wouldn't have had time to play as much as I did,
Yeah.
and have. And so I think just from that, people have just had more time to explore, which is great. And I think people are drawn to games that are different because you don't always want to have to kill the goblin raiders to progress, you know? And I think like so many of the more traditional games are very combat focused,
Yeah.
and even the more indie ones that still have combat built in will encourage other ways of resolving conflict. So maybe, I mean, you still both have guns or whatever. Maybe you're in mechs even, but you can still like have a heart to heart and be like, oh, you don't actually want to be fighting in this. Like you're just being paid to, you know, like, I mean, which is a
Yeah.
certain kind of want, but you're not invested in the, like, I don't want to kill you over this. So
Yeah.
maybe we can figure out a different way. So, and I like that a lot because that draws more of like the personhood in. Not that there's anything wrong with like a tactical style RPG, but I think a lot of people aren't interested in that. And
Yeah.
now that the space has opened up for creators to write more story driven, fiction first kinds of games, a lot more kinds of people feel like they can engage with that without just having to do major hacks to the more popular systems.
It's almost like these smaller indie games are saying it's okay for your character to be traumatized after making their first kill.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and there's a lot of really interesting, unique ideas out there, and I just
So
think that,
many.
oh my gosh, so many games will never get to play.
I know. I have a list, and it only gets bigger. It doesn't go down.
I got some free time now. Let me know if you're looking to play something.
Oh yeah, I will.
So, actually, you mentioned it a little bit there a moment ago, and it was the COVID-19, just the entirety of this pandemic. How has this affected
Hmm.
you as both a person and as a designer?
Oof.
Yeah, it's a big one.
uh, yeah. As a person, ooh, let's see. I guess like the biggest thing is, just I was just home a lot more. Right? And so like that allowed me to do, I mean, I guess like I alluded to before, is I just got deeply invested in the Roll Plus Bond community, and uh, just played a lot of games with a lot of people and formed these great friendships. Like there's a lot of people in that community that I consider to be dear friends, and through that, played a lot of games and then started writing some. It was because of that community for sure that I just saw people writing games and posing questions and collaborating and building stuff up. And then I was able to feel like, oh, well, maybe I could. And so I, just kind of brainstormed on some things and then started developing. So Wagon Wheel was the first thing I developed. Started developing, and then it kind of went from there. So I guess it's the me as a person and me as a game designer are like, and how they were affected by the pandemic go hand in hand. It's almost like the same answer. I had a lot of time to explore more about who I was, like do deep dives internally,
Mhm.
and a lot of that I actually did through tabletop RPGs, because they are a very safe place to explore things like gender identity, sexual orientation, all those kinds of things, as well as other kinds of philosophy. because you can play a character that has these different kinds of um, inclinations and ideas and ways of being without it being a big deal. And people don't know and don't care if that's a thing that you're sorting through yourself, or if it's just a character that you're playing, because both of those are fine and it's not really anybody's business if you're trying to sort through something on your own, or not. But it really is a very safe place to explore these different kinds of things. I know Adela mentioned some of that kind of stuff, and so
Yeah.
I'm in the same kind of boat, So through games, I was able to, play around with pronouns a little bit and play around with some other things. So like, it's in those spaces I was able to confirm ideas that I had, right? So like with the being non-binary and being able to use any pronouns and being
Yeah.
pan, and just not really caring what gender the people I'm attracted to are, is all stuff I got to kind of engage with and see how it felt to embody that.
That's the kind of stuff that I really like hearing about this hobby. I know that a lot of times we don't get too serious on this show, but really, people out there listening and Weston, this is the stuff that I really like tabletop role playing games for, because it's giving you that, not even excuse, but that opportunity, because
Yeah.
yeah, you don't, you're playing the character, and somewhere along the lines, you and the character kind of blur a little bit together, because a piece of you is always going to be in there. There's no way.
Always, yeah.
Yeah, there's no way for it not to be. And so if you're listening to this and you haven't really been invested in trying anything, or you have a group that maybe would give you a hard time, try a different group, try a different game, and do a little exploration. See what happens. You never know, really.
Yeah. You can find me on Twitter and talk to me about it too. I'd love to talk through that stuff, or just play a game and you can, work through it there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Weston's super friendly. I've had a couple conversations with them. So we're actually getting close to the end of our time here. It's almost been 40 minutes now. So two more questions, one bigger one smaller one. So the first question, what advice would you give to somebody who's trying to make their first game and they've never put pen to paper before?
Sure. Well, the first advice is play a lot of games. See what kinds of things you're interested in, the kinds of themes you enjoy. Definitely write a game you want to play, and then just start. And something that helps me a lot is, as soon as it feels like it's in a playable state, a viable state, play test it. You'll learn a lot from the way that people engage with your game and with the rules. But start small. Hack something that you enjoy playing, like just twist it a little bit. I think that's a really great way to start, because you already have the structure and you just have to put a different theme on it and just kind of rewrite some things. Most game designers are really happy to see their game reworked in a new way, if it can be a jumping off point for a new game designer. That's exciting.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. We've heard that a couple times and in various different ways, but it makes me happy every time to hear it, because it just tells you that it's good advice. Like,
yeah, feel free to hack any of my games. You don't have to ask. Just don't do anything dumb with it,
we already put that down at the beginning. No Nobody
Yeah.
could change these games.
Right. I will get upset.
All right, and on to the smaller question. Weston, where can people find you?
Oh, yeah. So you can find the games that I've written at braverun.itch.io. And I'm on Twitter and Instagram at braverun__.
And as always, everyone, those things will be linked down below in the description. Weston, it's been great to have you. I'm so glad I got to have this conversation because I've been looking forward to it for a really long time. I'm not even kidding. I'm a huge fan of your work, and I get to see a lot of people say really nice things about you and just like talk about how your kindness and excitement for their projects has pushed them to make bigger things. So
Cool.
I'm really glad I'm just glad to have been able to talk to you, even if it was just for a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool, man. It was really great to be on here and to just kind of explore these ideas with you. Obviously love to hear that people are saying nice things. It's always great.
All right. Well, thank you so much again, Weston. And thank you for listening, audience. Once again, Weston and all of their products will be, they're already launched. You can go get them. So I hope you have a good night. Weston, thank you one more time. Have a good night, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much to Weston for coming onto the show this week. They really have made a huge impact for a lot of people, and he's incredibly positive. And I have loved every interaction I've had with Weston in this space. So really, please go give them and all their stuff a look. Show it some love. Weston really deserves it. Also, thank you for always listening. There's been a lot of support lately, and it really wouldn't be possible without all of you. So, as always, if you like this episode and have heard of a project that you think might inspire someone or that they'd be interested in, please send this episode over to them. Word of mouth is the best way for us to continue to grow here. Next week, we're going to be talking with a really interesting and cool up-and-coming designer named Brian about his game, Our Farm Becomes the Battlefield. It's a really cool game, and it uses the Lumen SRD, which I learned a lot about recently, and I'm just so excited for you to hear about that. So if you're interested in Lumen or this game, please come back and take a listen. Brian is phenomenal. Hope to see you there. Take care.